They dumped cranes and construction waste at Walker's farm edge. Then the flood came. Grab your popcorn as we take you on this journey. At the edge of a quiet farming town, where the road slowly turns from paved asphalt into broken gravel and forgotten dust, stood the old farm of Mr. Walker. Most people didn't even call it a farm anymore. To them, it was just that empty land near the construction site. The fields had started to lose their shine years ago, not because Mr. Walker stopped caring, but because everything around him started changing faster than he could fight back. And then came the construction company. At first, it was just noise. Morning engines. Heavy trucks passing by like thunder on wheels. Then the land beside his farm changed completely. A large engineering project had begun nearby. Foundations, buildings, industrial expansion. And with it came something nobody warned Mr. Walker about. Waste. Not small waste. Not manageable waste. Cranes that had broken beyond repair. Concrete blocks shattered during construction mistakes. Steel beams twisted like paper. Entire sections of demolished structures. And they started dumping it right at the edge of his farm. At first, it was temporary. Just a few loads. Just until they found a proper disposal site. But days became weeks. Weeks became months. And the edge of Mr. Walker's farm slowly disappeared under mountains of industrial debris. What used to be visible green farmland was now a wall of destruction. From the road, you couldn't even see his crops anymore. Only rubble. Only broken concrete. Only rusting metal stacked like a man-made mountain. And the worst part? Mr. Walker saw everything. Every morning, he stood at the same spot near his fence line, watching another truck arrive. He tried to stop it. He went to the construction supervisors. He pleaded. He argued. Then he reported it to the local authorities. But nothing changed, because the company was powerful, and the system was quiet. The police came once, looked around, wrote nothing meaningful, and left. Later, people in town whispered what everyone already suspected. They were paid off. And just like that, Mr. Walker's voice disappeared inside a system that no longer wanted to hear him. So the dumping continued. Higher, heavier, louder, until his farm was no longer just bordered by waste. It was surrounded by it. And in the eyes of the town, his land had become useless. A forgotten patch of soil trapped behind industrial ruin. Even his neighbors stopped visiting, because nobody wanted to pass through the dump site just to reach him. That was when the flood warnings came. At first, no one paid attention. They had heard warnings before. Heavy rain, storm alerts, nothing unusual. But this time, the sky was different. The clouds didn't just gather. They sank, like a ceiling collapsing over the earth. And then the rain began. Not gentle rain, not seasonal rain. This was violent, relentless. The kind of rainfall that doesn't feel like weather. It feels like punishment. Within hours, roads began to disappear. Drainage systems overflowed. Small streams turned into rushing rivers. And the entire region started flooding faster than anyone expected. People panicked. Cars stalled. Houses filled with water. Fields turned into lakes. But at the edge of the town, something strange began to happen. Mr. Walker's farm was not flooding the same way. At first, nobody understood why. The rain was the same. The storm was the same. The flood covered everything around it. But his land resisted. The water hit the edge of the construction waste first. The mountains of broken concrete and steel that had been dumped illegally over months. And instead of flowing smoothly across his farm, the water was redirected, blocked, slowed, split. The dumped debris had unintentionally formed a barrier, a rough, uneven, chaotic flood defense made of crushed stone, steel, and collapsed industrial materials. What was meant to destroy his land was now protecting it. But inside the house, Mr. Walker didn't celebrate. He just stood by the window, watching the water rise everywhere except his own fields. The same fields people said were ruined. the same land they ignored, the same place they disrespected for months, now becoming the only stable ground in sight. And in that moment, something heavy settled in his chest, because he remembered everything. The complaints, the reports, the ignored warnings, the bribed silence, the humiliation, the feeling of being powerless while his land was being buried alive under industrial waste. And now, that same curse had become his shield. By morning, the flood had fully taken over the region. Entire farms were underwater. Barns collapsed. Roads vanished. Livestock displaced. But Mr. Walker's land stood like an island in a broken sea. Not untouched. Not perfect. But alive. Stable. Above water. When rescue teams finally arrived, they couldn't understand what they were seeing. One officer stared across the landscape and said, "This farm should be gone like the rest." But it wasn't. And slowly, the truth came out. The dumped construction waste had changed the elevation, soil resistance, and water flow around the property just enough to redirect the flood patterns. What was once illegal dumping had accidentally engineered protection, and the irony hit everyone at once. The same company that tried to silence Mr. Walker had saved his farm, not through intention, but through neglect. Back in town, people gathered in silence as the water slowly receded in the following days. They didn't laugh anymore. They didn't joke, because now they understood something uncomfortable. Sometimes destruction doesn't look like destruction at first, and sometimes what people call useless waste becomes structure in disguise. Mr. Walker didn't sue anyone. He didn't celebrate. He didn't give speeches. When reporters came, he simply looked at his land and said, "I didn't survive the flood." He paused, then added quietly, "The land did." And maybe that was the deepest truth of all, because farming was never just about control. It was about endurance, about weathering what you cannot stop, about surviving systems you cannot fight, and sometimes about turning injustice into unexpected survival. As the sun finally returned after the storm, light reflected off the broken concrete barriers at the edge of his farm. Not beautiful, not clean, but now meaningful, because what was meant to bury his land had instead become the reason it still existed. And if you're still watching this story, subscribe and share, because sometimes the things people throw away become the reason others survive.